Today's episode is brought to you by GetSkinnyOnline.com, your source of medically guided GLP-1 weight loss services online. You'll find popular peptides like Semaglutide and Tirzepatide in injectable, liquid, and pill forms to make your weight loss journey easy. Go to GetSkinnyOnline.com or check the show notes for the link. Now, here's your hosts.
Here's a question that's probably crossed your mind if you've spent any time looking into weight loss medication. Why does one version of semaglutide cost over $1,000 a month, while your social media feed is full of ads offering what sounds like the same thing for a couple $100? Same drug name, wildly different price. Something doesn't add up, right?
And if you're over 40, you've probably also had that moment of, okay, is this a scam? Is the cheap one fake? Because we grew up in the era of too good to be true diet products, so our radar goes off immediately.
Exactly. So today, we're doing a full, honest breakdown of compounded semaglutide, what it actually is, why it's cheaper, what the new FDA rules in 2026 mean for anyone using it or thinking about it, and how to tell a legitimate option from a risky one. No hype in either direction.
And this matters more than ever because these medications are not niche anymore. A Gallup survey this year found that about 11% of American adults are currently taking a GLP-1 medication for weight loss. That's up from 3% just 2 years ago. And roughly 1 in 5 of those people are using a compounded version rather than a brand name like Ozempic or Wegovy.
So millions of people, many of them in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, are making this exact decision right now, often with confusing or flat-out contradictory information. Before we go further, our usual reminder. This show is educational. We are not your doctors, and nothing here is medical advice. Any decision about medication, especially weight loss medication, needs to happen with a licensed provider who knows your health history.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What does compounded actually mean? Because I think a lot of people hear that word and picture someone mixing chemicals in a garage.
Right, and that's not what it is. Compounding is when a licensed pharmacy prepares a customized version of a medication for a specific patient based on a valid prescription. Compounding pharmacies have existed for decades. They're state licensed, and they make things like allergy-friendly versions of drugs or liquid versions for people who can't swallow pills.
So the practice itself is legitimate and regulated. The pharmacies are real pharmacies.
Yes, and in the United States, there are two main types: traditional compounding pharmacies, which prepare medications patient by patient, and larger outsourcing facilities that can produce bigger batches under additional federal oversight. You don't need to memorize the details. The point is, there's a licensing system, and legitimate compounded medication comes through that system with a real prescription from a real clinician.
Okay, so here's the obvious next question. If brand name semaglutide exists, why did compounded versions become such a big thing?
2 reasons: shortage and price. When these medications exploded in popularity a few years ago, the manufacturers literally could not make enough, and federal rules allow compounding pharmacies to help fill the gap when a drug is officially in shortage. That's how compounded semaglutide went mainstream.
And the price side is honestly the bigger driver for most people. Without insurance, brand name semaglutide for weight loss has typically run somewhere around $1,000 to $1,200 a month. Tirzepatide even more. Compounded versions have generally been in the range of a few $100s a month. For a family budget, that's the difference between possible and not possible.
And let's be real about who feels that squeeze. If you're in your 40s or 50s, you might be paying for your kids' activities or college, helping aging parents, trying to catch up on retirement. $1,000 a month for a medication your insurance won't cover is just not realistic for most households.
So compounded filled a genuine gap. But, and this is the part of the episode where we have to be really straight with you, there is a major asterisk. Compounded medications are not FDA approved. And that phrase means something specific, so let's unpack it.
When a brand name drug gets FDA approval, the agency has reviewed the clinical trials, inspected the manufacturing, and verified that every dose is consistent. The big weight loss results you've heard about, like the trial where semaglutide reduced around 15% average body weight loss, or the tirzepatide trial showing around 20%, those were randomized controlled trials. That's the gold standard of evidence, where people are randomly assigned to the drug or a placebo, and those trials use the brand name FDA-approved products.
So when someone says compounded semaglutide is exactly the same, that's an overstatement. The active ingredient is intended to be the same molecule, but compounded versions have not gone through their own large clinical trials, and quality can vary from pharmacy to pharmacy because each one is preparing it independently.
And when someone says compounded semaglutide is fake or dangerous across the board, that's also an overstatement. A properly licensed pharmacy working from a legitimate prescription is operating within a real regulatory framework. The honest answer lives in the middle. the source matters enormously.
Which brings us to what changed recently, because 2026 has been a turning point. Walk us through it.
So the legal basis for mass-producing compounded semaglutide was the drug shortage. The FDA declared that shortage resolved, which removed that justification for large-scale compounding. And then, in February of this year, the FDA commissioner announced the agency intends to crack down on GLP-1 compounding that falls outside the rules. So the wide-open era is closing. Some compounded options are disappearing, and the ones that remain are supposed to fit narrower patient-specific.
Quick reminder that today's episode is brought to you by GetSkinnyOnline.com, your source of medically guided GLP-1 weight loss services online. You'll find popular peptides like semaglutide and tirzepatide in injectable, liquid, and pill forms to make your weight loss journey easy. Go to GetSkinnyOnline.com or check the show notes for the link. Now, back to the show.
Circumstances.
And at the same time, brand name prices have started coming down. There were federal pricing agreements announced with the manufacturers that brought certain brand name GLP-1s down to around $245 a month through new programs, and a Medicare pilot launching this summer with copays as low as $50 a month for eligible patients.
Plus, a brand name semaglutide pill launched in January, and more oral options are coming. So the gap that compounding filled, both the shortage gap and the price gap, is genuinely narrowing.
Okay, so let's get practical, because this is where our listeners live. If you're over 40 and you're either taking compounded semaglutide right now or considering it, what should you actually do with all this?
First, know your source. Ask where the medication is compounded and confirm it's a state-licensed pharmacy operating in the U.S. A legitimate telehealth provider will answer that question happily. If anyone dodges it, that's your answer.
Second, and this one is huge, avoid anything sold without a prescription. If a website will ship you semaglutide with no medical evaluation or sells it labeled for research purposes, walk away. That's the truly risky corner of this market. And unfortunately, the FDA crackdown on legitimate compounding may push more desperate people toward those great market sellers. Please don't be one of them.
Third, if you're currently on a compounded version, don't panic and don't just stop cold on your own. Talk to your prescriber about your options, whether that's continuing under the new rules where appropriate or transitioning to a brand name product now that prices are dropping. There was actually a study published in the British Medical Journal this January that found people who stopped weight loss injections regained weight about 4 times faster than people who stopped conventional diet programs. So the exit plan matters as much as the entry plan.
That study is such an important reality check. These medications work while you're on them, and appetite tends to come back when you stop, which is exactly why medical supervision beats do-it-yourself at every stage.
Now, let's talk about the over 40 layer specifically, because this is where generic GLP-1 content really lets people down. Starting with muscle.
Yes, after 40, we're all dealing with sarcopenia, which is the gradual, age-related loss of muscle mass. It's a normal process, but it accelerates if we're not actively working against it. And here's the catch with any rapid weight loss, medication or not. A meaningful chunk of the weight you lose can be lean mass, meaning muscle, not just fat, unless you deliberately protect it.
And muscle after 40 is not about looking a certain way. It's your metabolism, your blood sugar regulation, your balance, your ability to get off the floor at 75. So if you're on any GLP-1, the non-negotiables are adequate protein, which gets harder when the medication shrinks your appetite, and some form of strength training. Even 2 sessions a week moves the needle.
There's also the hormone context. For women in perimenopause and menopause, declining estrogen shifts fat storage toward the belly and makes weight loss genuinely harder. That's biology, not a willpower failure. For men, gradually declining testosterone can chip away at muscle and energy. So if the last few years have felt different, you're not imagining it, and it's worth having the full hormonal picture evaluated rather than treating weight as an isolated problem.
And one more over 40 reality, medications. By midlife, many of us are on something, whether it's for blood pressure, cholesterol, thyroid, mood, or blood sugar. GLP-1s slow stomach emptying and change appetite, which can interact with how other medications work. That's another reason the online questionnaire alone isn't enough. You want a provider who actually reviews your full medication list.
Let's do some quick myth busting before we wrap. Myth 1. Compounded means counterfeit.
False when it comes from a licensed pharmacy with a valid prescription. But the counterfeit and gray market absolutely exists alongside it, which is why verifying the source is step 1.
Myth 2. Compounded is identical to the brand name, just cheaper.
Also not quite right. Same intended active ingredient, but without the same FDA review, trial data, or manufacturing consistency guarantees. It's a real trade-off, and you deserve to make it with open eyes.
Myth 3. Taking a GLP-1 is the easy way out, and after 40, you should just eat less and move more.
This one I want to push back on hard. Obesity is recognized by major medical organizations as a chronic condition with strong biological drivers, and those drivers get stronger in midlife, between hormonal shifts, muscle loss, and metabolic changes. For the right person, under medical supervision, these medications are a legitimate tool. Not the only tool, and not for everyone, but using one is not cheating. And on the flip side, they work best alongside protein, strength training, sleep, and stress management, not instead of them.
A quick word on who should be extra cautious. People with a personal or family history of medullary thyroid cancer or a condition called MEN2 should not use these medications. Anyone with a history of pancreatitis, significant digestive conditions, or an eating disorder history needs a careful conversation first. And they're not for use during pregnancy. Again, this is exactly what a real medical evaluation is for.
Which brings us to our sponsor. And honestly, today's topic is their world, so let's keep the same balanced lens. This episode is brought to you by Get Skinny Online. They connect you with U.S. licensed doctors who evaluate whether GLP-1 treatment is appropriate for you, and if it is, build a medically supervised plan with ongoing check-ins and dose adjustments, rather than leaving you to figure it out alone.
And that supervision piece is the whole theme of this episode. Whatever you decide about these medications, decide it with a licensed clinician who reviews your history, tells you honestly whether you're a good candidate, and stays with you through the process, including if and when you come off. You can learn more at GetSkinnyOnline.com.
All right, let's land the plane. 3 takeaways. Number 1. Compounded semaglutide is a real regulated category, not automatically fake, but it is not FDA approved, and the big clinical trial results came from brand name products. Both halves of that sentence are true.
Number 2. The ground is shifting in 2026. The shortage is over, the FDA is tightening compounding rules, and brand name prices are finally coming down. If you're on a compounded version, the smart move is a proactive conversation with your prescriber about your path forward, not waiting until your supply disappears.
And number 3. After 40, the medication question is only half the conversation. Protecting muscle with protein and strength training, accounting for hormones, and reviewing your other medications are what turn weight loss into actual health.
Your one action step for this week. Whether you're on a GLP-1, considering one, or just curious, write down 3 questions and bring them to a licensed provider. We'd suggest, is this medication appropriate for my health history? Where exactly would my medication come from? And what is the long-term plan, including how I'd eventually come off it?
Thanks for listening. Today's episode was brought to you by GetSkinnyOnline.com, your source for medically guided GLP-1 weight loss services. They have popular peptides like semaglutide and tirzepatide in injectable, liquid, and pill forms to make your weight loss journey easy. Go to GetSkinnyOnline.com or check the show notes for the link. See you next time.